Welcome to State of the Arts. I'm your host, Jason Hedden. We are coming to you from the campus of Gulf Coast State College in Panama City, Florida. And in this series, we talk to some of the movers and shakers in the local art scene. And I'm thrilled to welcome our guest today, Barbara McMinnis. Barbie.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Mm-hmm. You are a director, you are a designer, you are an actress, you are a Renaissance woman of the theater, longtime director of the Martin.
And I do toilets.
And whatever
you have it. It's whatever it is.
Other duties as assigned?
Oh yes, anything that is required. You know, in our particular career path, that's about what your job description is. It's whatever's required.
Yeah, someone was just, I was telling somebody the other day, there's a Japanese theater director, Tadashi Suzuki, who makes the lead actor of the show clean the toilet in order to keep him humble. And I thought,
what a fabulous idea. And I could save money on janitorial.
Right? Congratulations.
I probably would lose a lot of actors, but hey, I could.
You got the lead. Here's your toilet
That's right.
brush.
Here's the thing.
Well, we were talking a little bit before we went on, but give us a little bit of the history of the Martin. I know you've been involved for many years. For those people that are maybe new to town, or give us the short version of the history of the Martin and your involvement there.
Okay. Well, the actual history, which is really interesting because we're going to turn 80 next year. Wow. So that's kind of neat. It was originally built in 1936. Mm-hmm. It was a movie palace of the movie palace era. Mm-hmm. It originally sat 1,100 people, and it was owned by Davis and a guy named Bud Davis and Mr. Martin's all I've ever gotten it, but it's a company out of Columbus, Georgia. Okay. And they had a whole string of Martin theaters. You know, Port St. Joe has one.
Yeah.
There's one in Talladega. There's one, all through the southeast there were theaters. And they were originally called the Ritz. And then in 1952 or 53, Rex and I argue about this, but sometime in the early 50s, Martin bought Davis out. And that's when it became the Martin. But he only bought certain movie houses. So some of them stayed, like the Port in Port St. Joe, stayed like a Ritz kind of, with the Ritz marquee and stuff. But when it became a Martin theater, they redid the marquee and did all of that. And then, of course, that's where I went as a child. You know, when I was a kid, I met Jay North there. Many people don't know who Jay North is, but he was Dennis the Menace.
Oh yeah.
See, you're too young.
Yeah.
You're too young to know.
No,
yes,
I was like, maybe she'll tell me.
He was. He was Dennis the Menace. That was one of my defining moments. He was by the water cooler. There you go. But there are all sorts of stories. Clark Gable was stationed at Tyndall during World War II. The Martin Theater had a wonderful tradition of fundraising. Panama City, Florida, Bay County, Florida, raised more money for war bonds for World War II than any other county in America.
Wow.
That's what I was told. And I was told by Mac Lewis, and I believed him.
Right, sure.
If I can use that. The old pirate himself. But yeah, so it has a great tradition. I know that if you come to the theater and you look, you'll see all sorts of pictures. We have pictures of the of airplanes out on Harrison Avenue where they would fly the airplanes in, and all of that was for the war bond effort. But then it got sold to someone who turned it into a shooting gallery somewhere around 1973, 4, 5, 6, something in there, and so it was a shooting gallery for a couple of years, which was really kind of interesting. And then in the early 80s, the Downtown Improvement Board, which was Mac Lewis, he was the head of that, they purchased it. And they had this plan to bring back downtown because those of us who've lived here all our lives, or who were old like me and have lived here all our lives, remember the time when the mall came in. When the mall came in, downtown died. It was just, it was a ghost town. In 1990, when I moved in, so what they did is they started with the Visual Arts Center, and that was the old jail, and they turned that into the Visual Arts Center. They actually started with the park. They did McKenzie Park so that they could do big things there, right? And then they did the Visual Arts Center, and then they did the Martin Theater. And so they saved that. Instead of a parking lot today, we're there. I'm very grateful for that.
And they did the big Art Deco renovation in the mid '90s, early '90s?
No, it looks exactly like it's looked since 1936.
Oh,
the
wow.
original building. In fact, all of the stuff, the facade of the theater, just the front of it. It looks like tile, but it's not tile. It's glass, and it's called Vulcan glass, and it came out of Birmingham.
Oh, yeah,
back in the 30s.
Sure. I've been...
A lot of the Martin theaters have that. That's the facade that they use to do
Awesome.
the one in Talladega used black, but yeah, and so we're trying to maintain that,
Right.
and that's kind of hard because there's not a whole lot of it left. There is some left, but not a lot. So when they did the renovation in 1990, you will see that there is some tile that they used to fill in the gaps because there was only so much money.
So, well, when did you come on board?
In 1990.
In 1990. In your current role?
In my, well,
Or is it
they
shifted?
didn't know what to call me.
Okay.
Because we were part of the Downtown Improvement Board at the time. I was
Okay.
part of the Downtown Improvement Board for the first 12 to 13 years that I was there. So we had an executive director already. But yes, I did the same thing. In fact, at the time it was me and Rex Knight. We were the only two employees there.
Sure.
And so we love to tell the story. This is like walking uphill in the snow, whatever. But we used to do shows, and when we did shows, I would sell tickets. He would take tickets. Then when the show started, I would run up and do lights. He would run up and do sound. Then we'd come down at intermission and sell candy. And then we would go back and finish the show. And then we'd go greet everyone on their way out. So that was our entire staff.
I was first introduced in like 1993 when I was one of Margot's students at
Oh, good.
Mosley, and we
Okay.
came out and we did shows. Now I didn't know that it had only been a couple years running, but for local high school students, and I think this still continues today, there's something sort of magic about that venue. Like everybody wants to get in the Martin, everyone wants to perform in the Martin.
And I'm very grateful for that too. That's good.
And acoustically, somebody was just talking to somebody the other day about this, about how acoustically that space is so great.
It's the one thing that they did. I mean, I'm not going to say the one thing, but it's one of the things they did the best. When
Right.
they went through and renovated, they put in all of the baffling in the back and stuff, and it has a little bit of a roll, but that's an audio problem, and they can
Right.
deal with that. But yes, you can whisper on stage and hear it in the back.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool.
That's great. It's cool for me to now go back and see, shows there. And I can remember, as a junior in high school, getting to be backstage at the Martin. I still get a little
back
excited.
in those days, all we had was the downstairs. Were you
yeah.
part of that group that did? Margot came in and she brought like 60 of her best students, and you all had to be down in the downstairs dressing rooms because
Well-
we hadn't added on it.
Yeah, we were just in those little dressing rooms.
Right.
We did the King and I and a few other
Yes, you
big
did.
shows there.
They were huge.
But
Yeah.
I still look back
Oh,
favorably on
good,
those.
because y'all were crammed in like sardines. It was
Well,
great.
it's so funny though. The first time I went to New York, I saw the chorus line on Broadway, and we went backstage, and the men and the women were separated. Their dressing rooms were separated by sheets on a clothesline,
Right.
and in this tiny little space. And I remember thinking, this is Broadway, and our facilities in Panama City are better, And that's when I learned that, Broadway's an address,
It is.
And we saw some amazing things, but we also saw some real mediocre things. And as a 19-year-old theater student, that kind of rocked my world in a weird way.
Yeah.
Some good, some not so good. But so let's back up just a little
Okay,
bit.
I'm
So
sorry.
no, I'm going to go take you back in history. So did you grow up in an artistic household? Do you have what's your training, education in the arts?
No, my dad was in the Air Force. I'm an
Okay.
Air Force brat. And I think that you'll find a lot of us that travel around a lot like being the center of attention.
Sure.
None of my friends would ever accuse me of not. Anyway, so, but no, theater was a way for me to, it actually was a way for me to be clever and to be funny and to do all of the things that, when somebody else scripts it for you, you can be all those things, and you don't have to. My fastest, somebody says something to me, and my fastest return is like, "Oh yeah," It's like,
Yeah, right.
But if it's scripted, it's there, and you can be funny, and you can be smart, and you can say all of this stuff, and it just be anything that you want to be, and that's my attraction to it. I like it.
Now, did you go? You went to Chipola?
I did.
Okay. And so what was the program like at the time? Did you study? Were you on stage?
Yeah,
you have a lot of technical experience as well?
Yes. Yeah. Well, I went to Chipola back when Larry Alford was the mentor. He was the teacher, the drama teacher back there. And he, of course, subsequently went to New York and really made a name for himself. And we did some great shows. And one of the things that he would do, which was always very entertaining, is that once a year he would bring in a real name. Like I did Bye Bye Birdie with
Dennis the Menace?
No. that would be perfect.
Yeah, right,
that would have
right.
been Ken Howard actually
Okay,
came in and did
okay.
Albert to my and but it was interesting talking to him because he's there and he had made it. They'd done The White Shadow, and you were probably not familiar with any of this because it's so far in the past, but yes, he was a big deal at the time. He just played Thomas Jefferson when they made the movie version of 1776.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Okay,
All right.
and he came in and did this, and it was really interesting talking to him. And he went through and evaluated, and he was the one that told David Hart, "Hey, with your face, you can get work anywhere because you look like a truck driver, right? That
Right.
sells. That's a good thing." And David went on to do 11 seasons of In the Heat of the Night. So, he kind of made it and did some movies and did all of that. And then, it was a very interesting time. But yes, you did everything. You acted, you did anything that Larry said. You did church programs. You did anything that the community needed, we did, because then the community would come back and support us. So it was really a good program that way.
Yeah, I mean, it's still very strong over there, and I see that sort of education in the roles that you've taken on at the Martin. I mean, you've done a little bit of everything.
Right. Right.
Well,
yes. Well, I started. The reason I got hired at the Martin was because you probably don't know this, but I actually TD'd for the Foundation series here for like 4 or 5 years.
You or someone was mentioning
yes,
that to me.
So I actually got to meet all the people going through, but I ran all the technical stuff back here. It was a little bit past when we had all the big rheostats and everybody did. I mean, there was a board. But yeah, that was the reason I actually was hired, I think, was because I had the expertise and the equipment had started coming in. And everybody was going, what do we do? What do we do? And so I came in and the stuff came in and we got it squared away. So.
That's great. Yeah, we try to encourage the students now, to be as well-rounded as possible.
Absolutely.
And not even if you're consider yourself an actor, to know the technical side of things. And I think in a small program like we have, that is one of the benefits. You can be focusing lights for the show that you're starring in that night. That was at least my experience 20 years ago here. It's not quite that, but we still make the actors take technical classes and vice versa.
They need to. It's kind of like my father said, you have to have a skill. And you may be the most skilled person in the world on stage, but you can always get a job running lights, being backstage, being a grip, doing stuff like that. So.
It's still the case that there's so many more jobs in the technical fields. We created this new program in entertainment technology for that very purpose.
Yeah.
Because the crossover between film and TV and theme parks and live music, it's all sort of blurring. So the new program is designed for that.
And technology, my God, what technology has done. It's like amazing.
To even be able to get them to keep up. Well, I want to make sure we have time to get this in. So if we want to know about upcoming events at the Martin, what's the best place to go to find the current schedule and everything that's happening over there?
That it's www.martintheater.com. We've got a new website. We are now selling tickets online.
Awesome.
So everything that we do, that we produce or we present is on our website. I don't guarantee that everything that comes in as a rental is necessarily on it. So don't always call 763-8080. We'll be glad to. We love talking to people.
Fantastic.
It keeps people from having to work.
Yeah. Well, I want to end with this question. Okay. Because the name of our program is State of the Arts. So just briefly, how have you seen the local art scene shift, say, in the last 20 years? What sort of growth have you seen, or where do you think we're headed?
I think it's phenomenal. I look at, I watched this. Now I've told you I'm a dinosaur. I've been here so long. I've watched these cycles happen where the arts get very important and very, very good, and then I see it kind of fade off. A lot of it is, of course, we're economy driven,
right? Because
leisure dollars are the first thing that you lose when you hit a recession or anything like that. So, but man, in spite of it all, in spite of the horrible last 10 years that we've had, we've got City Arts going big time. We've got the Visual Arts Center back on track and is doing a really good job doing what it's doing. Kaleidoscope Theater is, of course, in its 185th millionth year and is as strong as it's ever been. And, we're going into our 21st year at the Met and the 25th with the Presents. And so, things have matured. Bay Arts has done well. The Music Association is doing very, very well. I just see it as a positive thing. I think that if we could get people to focus more on our arts community and on our arts tourism dollars, that we could actually pull it together to become the arts community, where people come in from out of town to see what we do. That's part of the college. The college keeps making huge strides, and now you've got all your new programs in place, and you've got a new theater, you've got a black box, you've got all of that stuff going for you. I just think that, I think that there's no reason why. I look around and I don't see any other small towns that have that.
Yeah.
And Panama City is not necessarily a really small town, but comparatively it is a very small town and very rural, even though it's not rural, but it is rural.
Right.
And for us to have as much going and everybody seems to be surviving, then I think it's wonderful. I think it's a great thing. I really do.
I agree. Thank
Good.
you.
Absolutely.
I could talk to you forever, but we're out of time.
Okay.
So I'll just say thank you. So thanks again to my guest, Barbie McMinnis at the Martin Theater. And this is Jason Hedden for State of the Arts. And we'll see you next time. Thanks a lot.